Thank you. Okay. Okay, that is a really low camera. Oh, we're gonna have one of them days. Sorry about that. Okay. I just had to run out and sort the dogs out, so I'm all sorts of I was like, oh no, I set the stream to go. Morning, Friday, or good afternoon. No, morning. Morning for you. Used to the European group starting the... How's it going? Okay. Oh. I get myself sorted now. Both at the same time. Yes. It's the whole Discord thing. Esther, good morning. How are you doing? Well, I hope. It was due to snow here. So like, oh, there's going to be like 4 to 6 inches of snow. We've been watching the weather stuff, and finally about 5 a.m. the schools announced we're closed, and it was due to start snowing heavily at 5 a.m. I just walked out with the dogs, and it's like in the air. There's no snow on the ground at all. My daughter would have already been in school by now. So yeah, I hope it snows heavily. Otherwise, they add a day at the end of the school year, and they'll have lost it for no reason. I want to roll in the snow there. I would love to roll in the snow. So my ideal version of snow is I have a cabin. I have no need to get out of the cabin. I have no need to clear the snow for any reason. I have no need to go anywhere. Then I would love snow. The flurries for the last couple of days. A little bit of grass poking through, but yeah, we just got ice right now from the last snowstorm. But when you have to travel in it, when you have to do anything in it, snow becomes a tremendous annoyance, because it's not just you. It's everyone else on the roads. It's, yeah. My driveway is a bus stop, so I have to clear my, yeah. Yeah. Snow is a nice idea, and if I had no need to leave the house, I would love snow. It's amazing. The silence, the calm. It's great in theory. But I suppose if you're in a country that doesn't have snow at all, or it's nowhere near, then it's kind of a thing you'd love to see. I can get that. But so we are due 4 to 6 inches of snow, which is a fair amount of snow over the course of the next 10 hours. So see how that goes. Yeah. So what is today? Today is back to Agile Project, with a bit of a heavy refactoring required. And I've decided to do this now and just suck it up and deal with it. So there's a couple of things that I need to do. There's a couple of things I want to do. And one of the things I'm kind of contemplating is, and let me see if this, I have the concept of the identifiers, right? So an identifier is a GUID that is shareable between systems, right? So I can talk about the same entity via its GUID across these systems without actually having any concept of internal IDs. Having that identifier means I don't have to share 57 across the system. And then what if my database needs re-exporting, or I change the schema and it's now 64? Well, I've got to now figure out the migration plan for all this data. Because if I keep this GUID with that entity, even if I change the schema or whatever, the concept of that user or whatever doesn't go away. And I do this on most entities, but what it's doing is driving me into a pattern of, if I create an entity and I want to create an event about an entity, right, a domain event about an entity, I have to have an identifier for it, right? That's pattern one that I'm not so upset over, right? So if I go into create, right, I have to create an identifier on this entity to be able to share that. Not the worst pattern. There's worse, but it does mean that pretty much the moment I drop entity base on something, I'm going to need an identifier, which means why don't I do right? So an ID will be a table ID, an identifier will be a shareable identifier, right? If I do it that way, then everything else doesn't need this, and I always have it, right? What else? So identifier is the first part, right? And that, what that means is, because I'm often publishing these created events, and I've been adding them when I don't need them right now, which is not a great practice, but it allows me to exercise that, okay, I do care about this. I am going to want to know about this. So let's add the event in there now, and then I can use it later. So things being created in the system, I will always want to know about, right? I will want to know when a planning item is added. I will want to know when things happen in my system. So there's no inherent harm in doing it that way. It's just, the whole Yagni thing, right? If I'm not going to need it, why am I adding? But it is allowing me to exercise my thoughts on the way things are building out. So it comes with another challenge, right? And you might be able to see some of this here. When I've been publishing these events, I've been passing in the identifiers, right? So when I go to add planning item, right? From the UI side of things, the API side of things, I have identifiers, right? If I'm selecting the assigned user or my user identifier, that will be a GUID. That will not be an ID, right? Because it's my identifier as Auth0 provides it. So I get into this world of, okay, well, when I'm storing the item, right, do I want to be storing the GUIDs on there? Because then I have to look up the user afterwards, right? And I have to join the user on the identifier. Whereas if I have the ID, I have essentially a foreign key link to the actual table for the users. So I'm questioning whether, and again, this is kind of the designing myself into a hole, right? If I carry on this pattern, that every time I add it, if I don't stop and think about this right this second and address this, right, then I could be making my life miserable down the line. So if I store IDs on here, what is the harm? Or rather, if I store identifiers on here, so the planning item, for the purpose of this, right? The planning item has who it was created by and who it is assigned to if that was set, right? So initially these are GUIDs, right? And right now I don't have that information, right? I don't have the users in this system at all, right? So if I make them GUIDs, and again, I generally distinguish between identifier and ID at this point, just to visually indicate that's going to be a GUID versus an integer, right? So if I do this, right, and I don't mind going back and forth over this, right, because I'm thinking through this deliberately for this purpose, because I want to stop and check my design, right? Right now, I don't have this information. We've got to kind of address that as well. But right, if I carry on down this path, right. I was lazy. I didn't rename those ones previously, so that makes that makes that slightly simpler as a refactor. I don't have to type identifier again. So now that's that, right? So this works, right? The test will pass, everything will be fine. What is the cost? Well, the cost is that I have now when I get an item to my planning items failed, really? Created by user ready because I renamed everything. Interesting. When I mean, I've got to look up the user anyway, right? Well, the problem, that's why. That's why I was right. So if I go to planning item, let's say I want to access the user, I can do user, and I can implicitly join on the primary key of the user table, creating an index filter. Thank you very much for 5 months. Appreciate that. Hope you're well. Good morning. Might buy an apartment. You're thinking the house path is a little bit too harsh and an apartment's more affordable. Hey, Take, how are you doing? Good day. Just good afternoon for you. A really cheap 1,300 square foot apartment got advertised. Really cheap for a reason. My brain is dead today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Take. The focus missing. They're going to buy next year, but this apartment price makes it possible to buy now. Low enough price, I'm wondering why. Yeah. I'd do some investigation before. I mean, you're a smart guy who does not, I would, from the way you seem, I do not imagine you as one who drops money very easily, so, without at least care and attention, so, I don't think it needs to be said. Yeah. Okay. Wow, remove or correct this useless self-assignment. Wow. That's quite a harsh message. I understood it, but yeah. So what I'm trying to go back and forth over here is there an advantage to having this? Now, I will be creating a table, and this is kind of, I need to do this next, otherwise I'm going to be missing some critical data, right? If I wanted to get a list of planning items, right? Select star from planning items, and I wanted the username attached right this second. I can't do that. I think that you should write, you are dealing with a task. How's your brain? How is the so I Essa alluding to the Mongo generic filtering stuff. How's that going? don't know if I messed that camera angle up more or more kinds of messed up today. Screwed with the camera right before the stream. I'm not sure I want to zoom it in. That's not very healthy. Hold on. Where is that? That way. That way. It may refocus. Generic filtering is one of those things that I actually really love to do. I was saying yesterday this is a fascinating thing to do. I think I've shown it on stream before. So on TBD develop roast potato, I think it is. Yeah, roast potato. So this was 12 years ago. Well, basically I wrote it I bring it out every now and then. I should touch it again, but seeing you do the stuff yesterday, Tick with all the ands and stuff like that, right? So the goal of this was to write a generic string-based query that would result in Lambda expressions, right? So then it could be applied to whatever you wanted it to apply to. So it's kind of like reverse link. The intention was to write a language that I could use to query datasets to provide for reporting, right? So it was a lot of this stuff where I was actually building up the expressions, figuring out the trees, because you get into the world of, left hand and right hand side, the equality, the ands become branches, right? So yeah, the entire goal was, I was doing this 12 years ago. I used should 12 years ago. See, I changed. Right, you could do address like test. Right, that was the goal of this, and I should probably zoom in because that font size is tiny. Right. So yeah, address like test and value greater than 20. So it was like the idea was that this would be applied for the users to just be able to write a simple query language, DSL, I suppose, in a search bar and be able to find the values they wanted to. Just need to take a break because I need to do some non-dev work, need to post to a company website and make a demo video of the GEMS platform, and I hope to progress to stage 3 of our Microsoft sponsorship. Nice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's going to be challenging. Yeah, I was fascinated watching some of that stuff yesterday, so I apologize I couldn't hang around and pay more attention. Unfortunately, when I was watching you stream, I was working as well. Check out the rest. Yeah, that's 12 years ago me, right? I don't know what I'd do differently these days. But that's why it reminded me of that, right? That need to create an abstraction. So I was writing an abstraction on top of an abstraction. Yeah. 12 years ago me was 9. Thank you. Thank you. I need reminding of that. 12 years ago, me had already had a child for 3 years, so. Yeah, I'm young. Oh, dear. "21-year-old me was not doing what you're doing, though. 21-year-old me was a programmer, but not very focused on things like you are, which I admire. That's a challenge, doing what you're doing. I think that is admirable to be doing that at 21 years old. When most people your age are, finishing up university and still not quite set on where they're heading. I got it wild and insane, but yeah, I appreciate it. I was in university trying to make millions at poker. I only can push one of those. Yeah. So, it's amazing. Yeah. So, anyway. I should do some coding at some point. Still made money at it, right? So the goal here is one of just determining whether I need to continue down this path or I have actually backed myself into a design hole, right? So that's where I was going. I am going to end up with a table, right? So let's start from planning items. If I want the username in here for the purpose of pulling planning items, right? I'd have to join users, which I do not have yet, on pi dot assigned left join on u dot identifier. So I'm joining on those unique identifiers, which I'm pretty sure are not the most optimal thing to do. Right? So I can still get to the user. It's not like I'm completely blocking myself off. Right? I do need to do the component that is consuming tenant users, etc. Right? And I actually think I need to get to the point where I'm publishing user. It might be more helpful. But to understand, to do it this way means I will be joining on a unique identifier, which, even if I've got an index on it, is that optimal? Is that a good idea? Right? So I want to make sure that I've not literally created, because this pattern will continue, right? It's not like I'm going to stop doing this, right? If I carry on this path now, then every other thing will do. How do you know what it is already? What's the index? Well, I'm saying that if I'm joining on a unique identifier, right? Joining on right? It's not as fast, right? To do that, right? Because I'm joining on essentially a GUID, right? So the if I build an index around it, that would be quicker. Because if I'm joining on the primary key, that is much faster. Right? A primary key lookup is faster. Right? This is not the primary key. I don't intend it to be the primary key. And I'm not certain, but I'm not sure you really should make primary keys out of GUIDs, out unique identifiers. That advice might be wrong. I don't know. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Sounds like I'm not alone in my, that might be dodgy advice. So what I want to do is make sure that I'm making the right decision, because this pattern will continue throughout the system, right? It's the difference between this code being good for now or this code requiring a user repository, right? If I need a user repository, a repository of tenant user, and it will be tenant users, and then it's, okay, var user created by user equals tenant user repository dot singular default new, get by identifier, then there's way more code here, but that pattern is one that I should follow throughout the rest of the application. Right now, I'm relying upon the fact, hey, I've got the GUIDs, it's fine, right? But I don't want to come back and fix all this later, because there's a lot more engineering and finagling to get that into place later if I carry on as I am. I think it's in SQL. It's probably better to use an ID and better to use GUID in NoSQL, but I don't know. you can't build an index without knowing the query beforehand. Like, well, yeah, I can. I can build a specific index on that column, and it will utilize. So SQL Server, when it optimizes for querying, right, it will pick an index that it feels is most appropriate for the query you're doing. So if I'm querying on an identifier and I have an index on that identifier, it will use that index. Yeah, I'm not trying to build a generic index. What I'm saying is I have the option of going and querying the actual entity from my data store and putting into here an ID, right? Instead of, which would be a primary key identifier on that other table, right? So on my planning item, I would store the primary key ID of the user table, right? For that user. Doing it this way, I will be using a unique identifier. So the table, right? Again, and I've got to build these parts, right? I've got to build these extra parts. I'm just stopping and designing this now and making sure that I'm comfortable. So let's say I have, actually, we can pretty much repeat it, right? If you remember the ticket system, right? Tickets has tenant users. It'll be almost identical to this. So we can actually put it in place. Planning items, right? So a tenant user identifier, because this user could exist for multiple tenants, right? Which then, yeah, this does give me an issue tenant-wise. No, I know the tenant identifier. Yeah, we're gonna know that anyway. We're missing the design. So on this table right now, there is a primary key, right? To be able to query via, and it actually doesn't. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter. I'm talking through this is helping me figure it out, right? I've missed a key piece in doing planning items. But either way, the way I was going there would be an index on this identifier. But now I'm talking it through, I realize that I've made a mistake and I've completely missed a component of this system. And what I will have is when I assign the user identifier, I'll have to combine that user identifier with this tenant. Yeah, I know what a covering index is. But I wouldn't need a covering index because I'd be looking it up by one, right? So SQL optimization would pull out that right index, but I don't need it. It's faster. It's better to do it this way. It's better to change it now. And I missed a key piece of this. No, the index wouldn't contain all columns. The index would literally just be this table. This column. Well, it'd be in the thing I was talking about then. It would be an index on this column, right? So that it's optimized for that query, right? So the indexes would be, right? I don't need a covering index on that. Now, saying that, for speed, I might need a covering index, right? Because I will often have get all tickets for tenant or get all tickets for tenant and user. Right, get all tickets for me, and now when I am saying me, I will only have this and this. Right, so I might have an index covering those two. Right, so again, I do understand enough about the SQL optimization to understand that if I'm querying by that often, then an index there, a specially constructed index, even with a covering index, it'd be faster than nothing. SQL Server isn't smart enough to build that indexes dynamically. What I tend to do is not put indexes on instantly, and then go back and run profilers over things so I can understand how the actual system is being used. In this instance, I would know how I'm going to query. There's no point in not having an index, especially as I'll be querying on two unique identifiers now. use the data store, or how do you know the performance? Well, I mean, I'm watching query sizes, query lengths. I'm looking at using the SQL analysis tools, so running the profiler and seeing if there's any long-running queries that are, in this system, I would expect a query to take no more than like 30 milliseconds. So anything over that would be something I'd question, right? So I'd run the SQL profile over the top of it. I don't have it installed. I did. Oh yeah, I just opened the folder by accident. So I don't know if Rider has. Does Rider have a profiler? I did not know it does. I don't think Rider. You doesn't look like it. So in SQL Management Studio, which I do not know login details for in a second. In SQL Management Studio, right, you run a SQL Server profile and connect it, right? I'm missing a part. Awesome. You can run a profiler and say, hey, I want to filter out all queries that take longer than this, right? And then you can take those queries and you can feed them in and then run them through with the plan on, right? You can enable the plan. And that will give you an idea of where the execution time is happening. You can then look at that and it will actually offer you indexes. Or you can see inefficiencies in your query. You can see, okay, well, it looped through that 6,000 times for this one record. Yeah, there's some optimization I need to do there. So it's worth going through the profiling tools and figuring them out. Sorry, I just grabbed the mic by no reason. But yeah, SQL Server profile. So what I'm doing there is answering my own question. I'm missing a component here entirely, right? Yeah, I'm interested in understanding different ways of doing this. So we're trying to keep an eye on watch metrics and stuff. Fridays are definitely not a good day to stream. Well, I mean, you guys are around. That's I don't mean that as insulting. I mean that as I appreciate you guys being here. I'm just saying, in terms of viewer numbers, things fall off faster on a Friday. Streaming frequently has allowed me to see the balance that I didn't see before. So while you do that, what I need to do is I need to introduce tenant. I don't have concept of tenant, and that's bad, right? So is there development in your Discord? Oh. Select top 50 DB name. Right. Okay. Yeah, you're doing the similar thing. Probably not. Probably not right now. I probably do not have all the right components. I think this is a Docker image of SQL Server that's basically plain. So, tenant management would be, wipes all the data out. So, yeah, nothing's going to come up. Oh no, there you go. It runs again. Oh yeah. System, not per database. Yeah, it's essentially the same thing as I was describing. You're just running it from a query. There is visual tools available. Does exactly the same thing. Right, so there's no missing indexes right now because there's not that enough data to build this off of. I'm not querying it heavily enough. Yeah. Yeah. I understand what it's doing. It's the same tooling. Yeah. Yep. So you can run the profile over this, and then you can run queries, etc. Yeah, you can do all that sort of stuff. This is because statistics is on, right? Again, that's in milliseconds, right? So, yeah. This is important. Regardless, it's an important part of working with a database, right? And this is the part that most developers lack. Can't get the stuff. Welcome back to the. Dear. I agree. Most devs don't know how to set the DB performance. And yeah, most devs don't need to go into, like, most DBAs in an environment should actually work with devs to make sure that they're doing these queries or they're looking at this stuff as part of the development process. And oftentimes it's left till after. So devs don't know there's a problem, right? But I've had the advantage of working with someone who is extremely talented at those facets. And, I might not work with many, like, great developers throughout my career, but I have worked with great IT people, right? So it's really hard to accept that, like DBAs and stuff are incompetent when I've worked with great IT people in general. So I have had the advantage of being shown some of this stuff and walk through this stuff. But it is something that I believe that you should do early enough that you are not, or you should be taught to bear it in mind how you're querying the data, how you're pulling the data out before you actually just go and do it. Now, I'm building an application that has plenty of time to grow. It has plenty of time to expand, and I can learn some of these things as I go. But again, this makes a difference in how I'm going to do things, right? I'm fairly certain SQL breaks down around 1 million records. Breaks down. I can guarantee I've seen SQL chug through 4 billion records, so on relatively, not stunning hardware. And millions is not uncommon. But again, it's optimization. It's using the data correctly. Yeah, 25 million was the last table that I saw that was of any size. The week I worked at Bet365, I was very impressed. They had made a tool which is essentially managed by the DBA team, which autonomously checks SQL scripts for common standards and mistakes before sending off to the DBA. I don't have an issue with tooling at the development level. I don't have an issue with developers building tools to help the development process and putting in processes to help monitor, because developers in general are lazy and they'll do the quickest thing possible, and that's why I'm addressing this now. I wonder if our indexes are the problem. Most of our indexes aren't covering. I mean, it's definitely something you probably should look at in terms of optimization and even just getting some idea of how it's functioning. That's what how much does he charge me in dollar? I'm afraid I'm not teaching programming. I'm sorry, I can't help that. More than welcome to watch the streams and see if you can pick something up. That's a good comment on YouTube, by the way. So, there's poker, isn't it? It wasn't be all end all. It would just filter out common issues before DBAs gets reduced and we're a ping pong team. Yeah, and it's a great thing to do, right? You should reduce stress. It's entirely why I'm developing this process, right? I'm developing this tool with the goal of reducing friction and reducing back and forth, which will cut down the amount of time developers spend churning on work. I'm going to let you guys talk about that stuff. So anyway, I need to do some extra pieces here, right? I need to consider the tenant. I'm Spanish speaking. I'm using translator to write to you. No worries. No worries. Fortunately, I do not speak Spanish, so I cannot assist there. So I'd assume you are using the captions working live on YouTube. I have no idea. Although, funny fact, I have looked at the stats for YouTube videos, and people put English captions on my videos. A lot of them put English captions on my videos. I guess my accent is hard enough to understand even as an English speaker. Oh. I am from Russia. I understand spoken language on stream very poorly. My question is, why don't you make a video on neural network, how to make a recurrent neural network and how to give it deep learning? For example, say hello into a microphone while it answers in principle. Not really my area of expertise, unfortunately. It sounds fascinating, but it is not something that an area of my learning. To be honest, yeah, I'm just lucky. I'm from like the same place you were from in the UK. Yep, yeah, from not far away. My boss is a fairly thick accent, Russian or something. That's pretty far from Webs. Yeah. I like that we are in a world now where we actually can work, with a variety of cultures, and the boundaries are not there that they were 10 years ago. I didn't understand anything you speak quickly. Neural networks are not something I want to get into. It's not an area of study. So yeah, I'm afraid I'm not doing that. Ooh, I'm everywhere. Deflux, good morning. How are you doing? Some random person sent me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm going to have to tell him no for sure. It's going to be awkward. Just ignore them. Just have a Romanian boss. Yeah, but even like international boundaries now, we because of the because of the internet connection speeds, we can interact with people in a way that we couldn't do. Thank you, Tic Tic. No. It's going to be one of them days, isn't it? Where things could just get weird. I've never got to use the Teams auto-translate feature thing. Yeah. It looks dope. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of tools for us, right? We are blessed by using the English language. We speak the English language, and therefore we have a significant advantage. Bye. Sorry about that. My apologies. I like your video. Good luck. Thank you. We did run Planet Earth for a bit. Yes. Not the greatest of times. Right? But, yeah. It has given us a significant advantage into the modern times. The language is still the most commonly spoken, or second most commonly spoken. Well, so I mean, it seems like I'm going to have some. I don't speak other languages, I'm afraid. This stream is in English only. I am not. The videos I put out, the content I create is purely for growth of all ranges. I'm not interested in picking up individual one-on-one teaching to that level. I assume this is fine as a response. If you want advice on how to get started, what to work on, etc., I can help you there. I'm not a recruiter and have no familiarity with you. I cannot really help in terms of getting a job directly. Yeah. You don't have to respond. People are throwing out a wide net there. I wouldn't really worry about it. Yeah. It's sad, but I personally like to reply to people, but I don't like to reply to everything, and a lot of messages go ignored. It's just not healthy. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got some pretty heavy refactoring to do here. I've missed a component of the system. Right. I've completely missed a need, which is kind of fascinating, and that gives me time for reflection. I speak my own deflexis. I can't even say the word that you've made up there. You need to update your S also on. That's addressed to me, Tick Tick. Ping me on Discord. How do you know that people could be? Okay, so I'm gonna use this time for reflection. Okay, no worries. Okay. So I'm a bit overdue on this story now. I set a due date of the 17th because I expected to get it done, and I was almost there. However, this raises a challenge, right? So with this style of story planning, right, which is going to get more and more complicated. So don't forget, this system right now is up to 35 projects, and I've barely scratched the surface of functionality, right? I've laid things out. I've put some pieces in place. There is there is infrastructure there. Well, not infrastructure. There is structure and an architecture of sorts. But there is not a great deal of functionality to this system as yet, right? I can add a user. I can sign in as that user. I can create a ticket. I can assign a ticket. That's it, right? I can't do much more. So what do I need to do going forward? Well, I need to make sure that I'm building on solid ground. So that's why this pause, right? This pause is, I need to do something. I've potentially missed something, and I probably should go back and fix it now before I go even further. Because a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, the system's not going to be any less complex. It's going to be more complicated, more challenging, and a refactor at that point is a really bad undertaking. So what do? Well, you move forward, and then you end up with a ball of mud because you keep building on those bad practices and those bad principles. I know this is a problem. It's not I think it's a problem. It's that I know this is a problem, and it's helped me identify a larger mistake that I've made. So if I look at this story that I created, as a product manager, I need the ability to create a planning item. A planning item should have a title, description created by, assigned user, review data. I should not be able to post an API endpoint. I should be able to post to an API endpoint and be able to see the planning item created in the database, right? I was trying to lay down my expectations. What I didn't do is explain who I am explicitly. I didn't identify that, and I missed my own requirements, right? So should it be, and I'm deliberately doing this now to make sure that I'm A, thinking about it, and B, clear that, it's easy to miss this sort of stuff. I just realized I'm relying completely upon light from my screen to do all it needs to do today. There you go, that's better. I also need to make sure I'm not standing off the camera. The lighting is what makes it salty. Defaults, what would I do without you? Okay. I will correct that. Thank you, Dick. That's interesting. That's a Microsoft provided one. You should have renewed. Okay. Yeah, I need to decide. I mean, it's a question I keep asking, and I hope that it isn't unnecessary. But like, if there's things like, I don't do a lot of writing, but if there's blog posts you think that I should or could write that would be helpful, let me know in the Discord. If there's video content that I should create based upon what I've done, let me know in the Discord, right? I really do want to make sure that I'm making the most out of some of this stuff. I don't always know how to put it. In terms of, just stream content. So, yeah. If there's things you think I can do, let me know. Okay, so this is a requirement, right? So I do say, as a product manager, I need to be able to create a planning item. So is this an implicit thing? Right? At this point, is it an implicit thing? Yes, it should be, right? So as a product manager comes with an implication that I am logged into the system, right? It comes with the fact that, I am a user of the system, therefore I should be able to create something. So, what did I do? Well, I created an API endpoint, and I allowed myself to add a planning item, and I was able to add all this information, right? But a user has a tenant attached to them, right? I did not make my data tenant aware. So my script for creating my planning item has no tenant identifier in it. So I can't organize this data appropriately. And that's kind of why, I also then realized that this doesn't matter specifically right now, because I need to know the user that it's really attached to. I have to know the tenant user, right? Because the tenant user could have a different profile name. It could have all sorts of other information to it that isn't just necessarily the user, right? There's no global user in this database. So I failed there to understand my own requirements. I'm writing the system. That's a major oversight that I actually could have said this story was done, because I could add a planning item. The only time it would have failed would have been on verification, on testing, right? So, and I might not notice that until I did the UI. Because I would say, okay, as a logged in user, I should only see tickets for me. Oh, I see tickets for every tenant. That's a problem. So to fix this, right, we are going to attach tenant identifier, right, to this record. This now has to be this, right? Because that's too slow otherwise now, right? So this created by user ID will become a signed user ID. I don't know why that has not null on it. That's dangerous. That wouldn't have worked. So that created by user ID will actually be a record in the table of the users for that tenant. So when I come in, I'll have to say, hey, go and get me for this user ID and this tenant identifier, the actual user ID. So I can create a spec that gives me that now. Yes, it's a query beforehand, but it will allow this to be much quicker. If I put the user I could still put the user identifier on, but I'd have to join on the tenant users by these two keys, by these two values. Is that something I want to do? Because that would speed up insert, because insert wouldn't have to do any lookups. But it would slow down query, because now my query is joined on two unique identifiers. But it's like, oh, how you doing? What is this? This is a platform that I'm building for Agile project management. I think Jira. I am building this to see if I can answer some of the questions and challenges I have with those tools. So, for anyone joining the stream for the first time, the stream isn't necessarily about me being productive. The stream is about discussion, learning, growth, right? It doesn't have to be me coding. If you have questions or challenges to what I'm doing, if you have ideas about what I could do differently, or you think that I'm developing something completely wrong, feel free, I've done this for quite a while. It's not something that's new to me. Software development is something that I have enjoyed doing for many years, and you know, I want to grow and I want to learn, I want to improve. So yeah. And if you're new to coding, if you're new to development, don't feel intimidated by this. It is okay to ask questions and go. I'm not teaching, right? I'm sharing. Good luck. Thank you, Predator. So you're writing out the SQL yourself. I always use EF. Oh yeah, that's the thing. I'm starting to understand not all to always use EF. I honestly despise it. Okay, so I am choosing to structure the table out using scripts. Migrations get messy quickly, and I have that many different projects that I do not want to get into the world of migrations. Migrations are nice, but yeah. Anyhow, what time? Good luck all. Take care, Doctor. Thank you very much for, as always, for conversation, stopping by, and good luck looking into that apartment. I do realize I fidget a lot more as well on a when I'm stood up at the desk. Yep, no worries. Have a great weekend if we don't see each other. EF generates very coupled data systems and generates complex queries that run super slowly. Modern EF isn't as bad as it used to be. I've not had any major issues with Entity Framework that can't be optimized out. There are times when controlling the SQL is definitely better. But yeah, I wouldn't say EF is bad. I mean, sometimes you have to look at the link it generates or the SQL it generates, and understand how to flick that, you know, like the link query around, or how to optimize that differently. It's worth looking at, but I'm not afraid of dumping raw SQL in. And honestly, I am tempted by the whole concept of Dapper query framework, not infrastructure framework. Dapper query and entity framework insert. But again, you're more comfortable with the SQL side. If you've got a bunch of developers, you don't want them writing most common queries. I've interviewed a lot recently, and the number of people that can write a SQL query, very low. And maybe that is in part due to things like EF and ORMs in general. But for a long time, developers have not wanted to go near SQL. So writing select star from is as far as they need to go for the most part, or insert into. The optimization path is something that you need to consider, and not a lot of developers do. So you're coming at it from a different experience perspective. Entity framework, in general, is not going to mess you up until you get to massive scale. Then some of those queries might not look great. But again, you could optimize. I've had success doing database optimization without even touching the queries, right? Just a few indexes that were missing or whatever. Just do a bit of analysis and do that, yeah. So, yeah, for most developers, I'd rather use Entity Framework than try and do the SQL. And I'm sure at some point we'll see this. And we'll see the challenges for this. Okay, so, talking about databases. If I leave these as identifiers, then when I query planning items to users, which I will have to do, Copilot's going to get us into more trouble. The more I use the AI tools, the more I'm tempted to turn them off, because the number of times it's giving me stuff that it just thinks I want and not actual real stuff. And if it starts doing that with SQL queries, you're going to end up with a bunch of confused developers because they're going to think they're being clever. And all of a sudden it's like, that doesn't actually execute. What are you talking about? And they're going to be chasing problems that aren't problems because their AI tools told them how to write this complex join. So I am tempted to turn Copilot off for the most part and use the chat feature when I need it. I mean, it's helpful for generation. Like if I'm writing out queries or I'm writing out or code like ETOs, awesome, because it'll know what I need and it'll give me all the fields. I can just hit tab. But when it comes to large code blocks, it's getting worse. It's like, oh, you need this API? Okay, I'll just make it up for you. Then it fights with IntelliSense. But anyway, I digress. So if I leave these other identifiers, then when I go to query these planning items, to get to the user, I'm going to have to do join on created by user identifier, tenant identifier. Whereas if I just do this once and query this and get this inserted from the beginning, then that lookup is quicker and this query out is quicker. That being said, do I want to do that anyway? Is that an optimization too far? Maybe, because I don't want to get into the world of making these tables about search, so I don't need that speed there. In general, I will be querying all things for a tenant, so it wouldn't be harmful. So from a speed perspective, right, I know these two pieces of information, right? So rather than make some work, now I've justified it, for myself. I'm going to put these back to what they are, right? The only thing I need to add now is the tenant identifier. A lot of complex SQL queries can be simplified significantly. Also, emphasis on a lot and not all. Yeah, sometimes you hit challenges. Oh no. No, I don't like listening to my own voice. I'm not even going to watch the clip. Okay, so I'm missing a significant component, right? Right. Not rejected. I'll watch it later, but I don't want to watch it on stream. I don't like listening to my own voice. Exactly. You'll see me feel awkward. More awkward. So I'm missing a tenant, right? I'm missing in my domain model, I'm missing tenant identifier. Public period tenant identifier. I'm laughing because I just said that Copilot helps me fill in the fields, and I started typing and it didn't try anything, but then I realized I've not even mentioned tenant, so it doesn't know that that's what I'm expecting. So let's add a fact. Tenant identifier is that. Private, static, read-only, period. Okay, yep, you don't want to read that now. Copilot's always watching but can't read your mind. You sure? I don't even know what that means. Result of tenant identifier. Okay, so we essentially need that in the same place. So I'm going to be awful there and copy and paste that because it's the same expected behavior. So we should be able to run the tests. And we should have some failures for the right reasons. Tenant identifier is set. We now modify the command. I think it's important to try and think about the order of the commands, the order of the arguments in the command here, because the tenant is an important concept to the data, so I don't think it should be missed. Expected an identifier. And do the same on this test. And I kind of know that's going to fail, so I'm not even going to worry about it. So in planning item now, we need to pass in GUID tenant identifier. And pass it in here. And now that line's getting ridiculously long, so we'll start to make it more columnar. Columnar? Is that the right word? Let's see. Here we have inches and inches of snow. No, but we do have snow. Okay, that's coming down. Okay, so we go in here now, and we need to send in request.tenant. No, that's user.get tenant identifier. So I have an extension method with a whole 5 millimeters of snow. We easily have that right this second. So the due 4 to 6 inches of snow before 10 o'clock tonight or something like that now. So, which means my day will become a mess. Ooh. So what should I send? Not null. Argument null exception. Let's go with that. So, in 2010, we had a massive snowstorm. It dropped almost 2 foot of snow on us in less than 2.5, 3 days. So my brother came over, and this snowstorm happened. And now I looked it up, and the most amount of snow we'd ever seen in the UK to that point was 11 inches of snow, right? And that was the highest snowfall in that area. So he came, and there's 2 foot of snow. He's like, "This is awesome." And he goes out and he starts messing around, because my daughter's little. And he starts messing around in the snow, and he's having fun. And then I'm like, "Now we've got to shovel it." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got to clear all the cars out." He's like, "Well, can't you just leave them?" I'm like, "No, because they'll all ice over. So we've got to shovel the entire front of the house, clear out all the cars, and with over 2 foot of snow. So 8 hours later of shoveling, he's like, "I don't like snow that much anymore." Because we had to clear out the front of the house, and you have to dig this stuff out with a shovel. We didn't have a snowblower. Yeah. Oh, interesting. So tenant identifier. There we go. That's the right way to do that. Yes, snow is great, and so you need to deal with the consequences of it. Yeah. So, like as I was saying earlier on in the stream, right? I love snow. If I could live in a cabin and the snow could fall and I didn't have to do anything about it, awesome. Just look at it, enjoy it, and leave it be. Especially with work from home, right? But the fact is, other things need to go out. Yeah. Okay, so passing in tenant identifier now. Morning, Apex. How are you doing? Yeah, you're in Canada, so you probably get a lot more snow. Tetris 4 cars into the driveway. Yeah, I can imagine. So we have tests. Our unit test should pass now. Yeah, all our fields are being set. We now need to drop that SQL table because that is not necessary anymore. Pop that one, then create a new one. So I use a Mac for work, right? And I use Data Grip on there. On Windows, Control-Shift-Q opens the new tab. If you do that on the Mac, things get closed. And that on the Mac, it's Command-Option-L. So my hands are in completely different location, the keys. I often screw them up. Okay, so we've got to identify. So now we should. Now the problem is we don't have a user. We're not logged in. We're not authenticated. So now we've got way more to test this. Because up until this point, I have allowed anonymous, right? But now no longer need to do that. If I go to my endpoint here for tickets, yeah, see how resistant I am? Imagine writing a unit test for a unit of work repo where you are testing a unit value. That would be confusing. Yeah, no worries, defaults. I'm happy to have you in here with an hour left of the stream. Oh, 45 minutes or so. But yeah, this is awesome. There you go. There you go. There you go. The yellow squiggles are driving me nuts. Okay. So we need a policy. Application policy. Fine. Where? In its policies. Oh yeah. Yeah. So we'll get into that later. But I have kind of created some structure around common policies. That will be a lesson. That will definitely be a lesson for me because it's not right. I know it's not right. It smells. Yeah. Actual policies would be specific to each component of the system anyway, I think. What I was trying to do is come up with some general structure so I could repeat the pattern. And what I realize is that doesn't work. Yeah. I've not done a lot of this stuff in my career. I've actually been able to avoid a lot of auth stuff throughout my career. So it's really kind of new in terms of me picking up how to use these effectively. So I understand the permissions, etc. I've added the permissions in the Auth0 side. But yeah, it's still pretty new. Now, there are extra layers that are going to have to get added on this at some point, right? Because I want to validate that the user is allowed to access the tenant. I might have done too much auth stuff considering the amount of experience I have. Yeah. So, yeah, just, and again, it's why, streaming wise is nice because you can, if you're willing to accept it, you can learn something, right? If you go onto stream and think, hey, I know everything, I don't need to be taught anything. Yeah, you're doing it the wrong way. no, I'm not. I'm doing it my way anyway, right? And I know I've said before, right? I'm doing this my way, right? I'm willing to adapt and I'm willing to learn. Sometimes that's going to be a little easier said than done. But yeah. Yeah. You definitely learn more from being open to the chat. Yeah, and again, I was speaking to my brother yesterday, and he's a carpenter, right? He has been for the same amount of time I've been a developer, really. And he was saying how, because he doesn't have the college background, etc., people look down on him. I'm like, well, or he thinks he doesn't, he doesn't stack up to them, and there's this guy that just criticized what he worked on because this guy's got 30 years of experience. I was like, doesn't mean he knows everything, right? He should be more open to learning new things, and you shouldn't just associate time on job or general years in practice of being able to know more, right? And we can all learn different things from each other. You have context of what makes sense for your project, and the chat can help you get there. My knowledge on interfaces increased 90% because of the chat. You were encouraged and you learn something, right? And then you are applying that knowledge. That's growth. That's why I stream. I'm not perfect. I think I say it in below, right? Yeah. So, okay. Now this gets a little harder to test because now I have to be a logged in user. We also now need to start considering what it means to consume this information, right? The difference in the tech industry more often than not is the 1 year of practical experience with a degree think they know everything more often than long-served arrogance. I've experienced both. I've experienced a lot of people that have been like, I've been doing this for 20 years. You can't tell me what to do. Or you don't know what you're doing. You have no idea how real software works. And it's true to some extent. When you start off, you do not know how the world works. You are idealistic. You think that you know how to build good software. You come fresh out of college or whatever, and that's it. You keep your ears open, your eyes open, learn, grow, and just pick up what you can, and don't be afraid to pass an opinion, right? As long as as long as the people you're working with are constructive in however they deliver the lesson, it works. You're doing that wrong is not constructive. Hey, let me show you a way of doing this, right? And just trying to teach somebody something might actually help expose a gap for you, right? So that's mentorship, and that's learning. So it's and that's why I don't have much hero worship anymore, right? I don't consider any developer that I meet a hero. I don't look up to people the same way I did. I've lost a lot of respect for a lot of the developers that I've watched and learned from. There are great developers, don't get me wrong. But it's that, hey, do it my way sort of approach that has really started to rub me the wrong way. And I've never been a big hero worship sort of person anyway, but less now than ever, right? You should admire people. You can respect people. You should treat everyone with respect, right? But it's looking through the code samples, right? Looking through how to do this, right? I have been told numerous times, hey, you should follow clean architecture, or here, this is the best way to develop software. Follow this pattern. Here, you should be using this tool, etc. Not so much on the stream. People don't. I've not had the experience. I mean, maybe because maybe I'm a little bit more confident in how I code that I don't attract that sort of comment, or I come across as someone who's not going to be willing to accept that. But I don't get in so much on stream, but off stream and with other people throughout my career. Yeah, you should do it this way. I don't like that way of doing it. You should do it this way. It can be hard to do via text, so you need to be even more careful on how you articulate the advice. Yeah. Yeah. Twitch chat, not a great place to relay. I think we've all experienced it. The whole, hey, I'm trying to help you. You're 6 steps ahead of me by the time you've actually read the chat because you're focused on doing it. Go back and read the chat and be like, oh, no, you mean this, right? I don't think it's that you don't come across as accepting. Oh, yeah, maybe the way I just write the software makes it look like I'm not, like I know what I'm doing. I'm not just guessing and making it up as I go along. Nice. Well, there is a core group of people that come into this stream regularly that I really do appreciate. It's the one thing I like about Twitch, the community building aspect of it is definitely, I get to work with people that I respect and we all have our different talents. So, yeah. Yeah, on that topic, it is something I've been considering in terms of being able to share real-time advice is more community meetup stuff, Discord call stuff, right? That is something that I've considered maybe doing, or like bring your projects or project review sort of stuff. If there's people that want some advice or help or guidance on things, then groups of people can get together more and do that. So that is something I've been thinking about. Because the whole mentorship thing, I think I want to be able to offer that more from my perspective, but also allow other people to be more mentorship. Not like dedicated time necessarily, like, oh, I need 3 hours a week or 5 hours a week or whatever, but being able to say, hey, we're going to have a community call on this day. If you have some thoughts or questions or opinions or whatever, and you want to go over things or you want to do code review, etc., then bring it and we can sit down and do it, right? So that sort of stuff. Well, let me know if anybody has any ideas around that, how it could be structured, challenges, problems. I would love to know any feedback in Discord on that. Maybe I'll post it as a general comment and see if I can get any feedback from you guys. From my perspective, personally, mentorship is something that I want to consider, right? Dedicating some time to. Sorry, keyboard smash. I want to consider offering some level of mentorship, like one-on-one style stuff, but at the same, I don't know how to approach that. And also, it's not just my knowledge that could benefit. So, yeah. After rejecting someone earlier on asking for lessons in coding, saying, hey, I would do some mentorship, that's kind of a bit contradictory, but it's not quite the same. I'm not being paid to do stuff. Okay, so to test this now, I need to log in, but I need to do another step. Let's do this. Let's get this committed. Tenant identifier missing from planning items. And again, there's an experience level there. There's an experience in so much as to know that I need a tenant identifier, I need to understand that the system is tenant-based. I have to know that all the pieces of software should do that. I can't enforce that rule. I've actually gone over that sort of stuff before, like with the code, right? It was I worked in a code base, or I started in a code base that was written, and I quote, because mostly developers are lazy, that was basically you could only write the software one way, right? You were told, write this, now write this, now write this. Put these pieces in, and they kind of tried to create this Lego system of development. Here's the reality. When a developer faces a challenge trying to develop a story, if you've put them under any sort of time pressure, they will hack around to crazy lengths what you've put in place. So if you make the platform easy to follow, but also make sure that developers understand quickly the challenges they're going to face, better to figure that out as part of the story planning, right? So this one, I can't enforce tenant management, right? I can't, unless I start making sure that I know what the table should look like. But then I get into I'm kind of planning the code before I've written any code at that point. Because once you put a schema in place, you've then essentially bypassed it with that TDD. Because you've kind of dictated how the software is going to write. You've dictated how the data is going to be. So, bit of a chicken and egg thing. But yeah, enforcing rules in your system, right? That should indicate to me from now on, right? And maybe I'll make that mistake again, right? Maybe you as a stream will see me make that mistake. But it's going to happen. I'm looking at myself in the preview window, and I'm like, I'm creeping further and further back because the screen's here, and it's a more natural angle for me to stand comfortably. So my apologies if I keep disappearing to the right of the screen view. Definitely more fidgety when I'm my camera. Stood up. Camera. Okay, so we pushed that change. But now, before I proceed with this story, right? Again, we bring this up. I need to be able to create a planning item. There's more to this. If I go ahead, there's other things, right? So if you remember, the whole reason for doing this piece, planning item piece, was to start working towards a draw.io, whatever it's called. Open. So, I don't know if you remember this diagram from last time or last week, whatever. The entire purpose of this, and I've lost the extra changes I made. But the entire purpose of this was to promote tickets to planning items and get that feature in place so that I could start to figure out those challenges. Right? So I put Service Bus in here. I don't think I'm going to use Service Bus. I think I'm going to backfill it with an API, an internal API for now, and consider what that looks like in the long term. Right? But the idea would be that when a ticket needs to be promoted, we'd invoke a method or invoke something that would say, hey, promote this ticket. At that point, that planning item would be created off of that ticket, and we would then start listening to events about the ticket coming in from the side. So we'd then consume that information. And that's data replication on a large scale, but it means that the ticket information is available for this item without crossing back over to this boundary. And it also means that, I can't change this data. This is the owner of that information, right? It's just read-only information on this side. But it means this system is self-isolated. So if the systems that tickets are hosted on fail or are slow, planning items is unaffected. So we can scale it independently. In theory. It also means that you could actually have a system where you don't need planning items. You don't want to use the planning items feature. We could turn this entire feature off and only ever promote tickets to stories, right? So you can actually flex this workflow quite significantly, building it this way. But that's not the focus. What I need to do is I need to make sure that information is being promoted. Welcome back, Default. again, you were back before, or you're just repeating that so that I know that you're back. Well, again, I don't think Service Bus is required at this point, but it might be something that I look at in the future, because I tinkered and experimented. No. So let's consider this system. I got back then, got an email, and got distracted. Let's consider this system as successful, right? Let's say there's 100 users on the system. To me, that would be a success, right? 10 users on the system would be successful. They create 5 support tickets a day, right? 10 users create 5 support tickets a day. 100 users creates 40 support tickets a day. Of those support tickets, less than 10% are actually going to be things that need to be actually promoted to workable things. So, we're talking 4 planning items a day, tens of thousands of users, maybe hundreds of planning items a day, but not great throughput, right? So an API for right now will solve that problem and be able to scale easily, right? That API can be self-hosted. It can be scaled independently. So the throughput won't need to be. So the intention there would be to create a planning items internal or tenant management internal, etc. So there'll be an internal API deliberately focused on that piece. And if later on I get to the point where it does become necessary to make a message bus out of that, the code that currently triggers the API call can be replaced with Service Bus, because then that internal system just becomes a component of that internal structure. It stops being an API and starts being consumers. Obviously, when you have APIs, you now have some dependencies built up, right? I can't have that independent deployability truly there. I have a dependency in schema. I have a dependency in availability, right? So I've got to build for those things now. But I can build them as isolated layers, adapters that can be later on swapped out. So no Service Bus plan at this point, having done some prototyping and playing. So, right. Internal API, understanding the risks. That's the key. Right? And I think that's a lot of software development, right? It's not lack of ambition, it's understanding the limits and the scale, right? Let's say a year from now I'm ready with this platform, which I think would be aggressive to say a year from now. But let's say a year from now I'm ready with this platform, and I say, okay, I'm going to launch it. I'm going to hit that button, and it's going to go live, and people can sign up for real. How long will it take to get users onto the system, right? What challenges come in between then and success? So realistically, these APIs, even if it's on one machine, can still handle thousands of requests. I don't think it would hit that. I think if it takes more than a year to come out with a minimum viable product, you shouldn't do it. If it takes more than a year to come out with because of market shift or because of just it's taking too long and I'm overthinking the problem. I think 1 year is wildly ambitious. Would be both, but I'd say market shift. A lot of scenarios. So here's the thing for what I'm building, right? Minimum viable product is what, right? What is the key differentiator that would expose what I'm doing as being different to Trello and then Jira, right? It's this process. It's the notifications that come with this, right? The minimum viable product is a big chunk of work, right? Otherwise, it's just Jira and it could get discarded as such. I could deploy it at the moment I can put tickets into it and say it's a ticketing system, right? I could do that. And that would give me the experience of deployment and building. But at that point, I also have to be willing to support it if I want to make it a product. So I've got to make that choice of, and okay, from now on, I'm going to try and make sure that I say when this product releases, right? Because I have to, if I want to treat this as a product, I have to believe that it is going to be a product, right? I have to put my energy into actually making it a product. I can't just be like, yeah, if this becomes a product, because if this doesn't become a product, what have I done? Well, I've grown, I've learned a lot, I've developed a lot of software, but I've already saved myself the pain of, oh, it failed, right? So I've got to commit, right, and push myself to do the right thing and get this software developed. I'm going to read back over the comments quickly. I'd say if it is viable, probably will become apparent in that time. How do you get it to 1 year being too long? That feels incredibly short, right? Well, it's more making a determination of what the minimum viable product is, and then being able to deliver in a calendar year. Having genuine experience with running a tech startup, being 6 months down the line and about 1 to 2 months away from some form of MVP release, 1 year is crazy. Gems is tiny compared to most systems. Like, you should be able to deliver something you have a vision of, even if it's like 10% of the final product, like early start sign up. So let's say we deliver the ticketing component. We have a sign up. We can sign up that. We can add tickets. We can turn off these other pieces, right? We can add them as features. And we say, yep, this is it. You can now add tickets. When a ticket changes, you can be notified of it. We can flex that notification system. We can flex that transparency. I now have to support it. I now have to make sure that future upgrades to the software do not break, which means my speed of development is slowed because I now have to consider what happens if I add another column. Oh no, I need another piece of data. Should I have it here? Yes, I need it. Okay, what does the migration effort look like? How do I deliver that to the production environment and make sure it's still running without having it sat there for 7 months while the rest of it develops, right? It adds the stress. So I've got to make a cutoff. I agree. Like you just said, then you'd have to support your product, which would have a negative side effect on the overall progress. Well, that's probably highlighting support issues you have baked into your architecture. I can imagine not doing that. This issue with your SQL issue and waiting 3 years until you have 10,000 users and having the same issues. Exactly. I mean, that's why I'm tackling those sorts of things now, right? They are decisions that I could have bundled forward with, not addressed, and come back and fixed after the fact. Raw.io, whatever. So, it's possible to have that. And that's how legacy software is built, right? Legacy software is, hey, I made a lot of decisions quickly to try and get the product to market. And that's the point, right? If I deliver tickets, is ticketing useful as a system on its own with the extreme notifications I'm planning? Possibly, right? It possibly is. Yeah, this ticket has been updated. This ticket, how many tickets have gone through? I can put metrics in there. I can practice those things, and I can also get better at the deployment. And I can practice that sales aspect of it as well. Yeah. For me, a bit of a salesperson, so for me, I'd make a homepage very quickly in like 3 hours with like 5 bullet points of what your product does and have a sign-up interest page. For example, in terms of gems, we have a lineup of customers before launch with great prospects. So our launch is to get funds into the business to then invest in building more of the product. Be a more analytic way to determine that cutoff, will vary depending on project. Very rare situation to be in for a software company, though. Yeah, I mean, I'm also streaming to my potential market as well, right? Software developers are where I'm aiming, right? Because they are the ones that could have the ears of their product managers, right? I can make YouTube videos. I can grow my social media profile throughout the development of this if I put the effort in, right? There's some natural benefits to the streaming aspect of it. I've delivered software. I'm not scared of delivering software. I'm scared of delivering software too quickly and giving myself, right? Let's say, and I do apologize for anyone not interested in the hypotheticals here, but this is software development, right? And a lot of businesses you will see all on these pieces because they they try and deliver so fast that they nice. Or default. They try and deliver so fast that they push a lot out, and then you end up trying to fix things after it's like, what is it? Closing the gate after the horse has bolted, right? You've lost control of the story because now you've got customers who expect things. I deliver the software and I charge $10 a user, right? And 50 companies sign up, and I have, let's say I have $5,000 of monthly revenue, right? My costs probably aren't hitting $5,000. My costs are probably relatively low at that sort of scale. I can't really afford to hire somebody else, right? What do? I've got to grow the software, improve all the platform pieces while suffering the stress of significant customer support, right? Now, my software is perfect, right? It never has any bugs. I don't write buggy software. People are going to find bugs. People are going to find issues. People are going to want to expect what they're paying every month to hit that fix relatively quickly. So what do? I go into panic mode and I start jamming code in there to fix problems. My code becomes weaker. I'll fix that later. I take on more customers. That pressure doesn't get any less, right? So I have to make sure that the point at which I'm delivering this is a point at which I'm happy. So my goal is to get this to a point where I can promote things and verify all these pieces to both areas, get the actual notifications piece starting to take shape, and then have a chance for you guys or whoever else to tinker with it, right? Put it in a place where I can deploy it and we can tinker with it, and I can get some feedback and, go through that cycle of like alpha testing of the platform, right? Actually, you start bug fooding the software, building my software off of my own software, allowing you as users to log in and add tickets for things you see wrong in the software that I'm building, etc. So, making it a more collaborative situation, if that is what people will be willing to do. If it's not, I can still deal with it on my own. Right? Because I realize I'm trying to build a product and then saying, hey, could you help me for free? It's more the interesting aspect of software development, right? Coding's like sometimes less than 50%. The problem without it wouldn't have anything, but you can't disregard the other 50% of activities to carry out. Yeah. So, the moment you put it in front of a person, right, that is not you, that has not been involved in the development, they're going to find something to break. It's just the nature of users, right? They're not going to use the software the way you thought you wanted it to be used, right? There's actually a site I want to spend some time on before we go even to UI. Let me see if I can find the email. I've been watching a guy on... I've been watching a guy on YouTube who does... He's developing an app. The app is LA Planner, right? I don't know if you've seen this guy, but this guy, Chris, is developing his app and he shares his journey on TikTok and YouTube. Hi, Chris Rorok. He owns a platform, he runs a platform, and this is his side project, right? He runs an actual kind of a contracting platform for developers, right? For finding developers. But this is his side project, right? It must be nice to be young and be able to do that. But this is a pretty good tool, actually. I've been using it. He builds the app and he puts the videos up on YouTube, but he recommended a tool. I'm trying to find the name of it. It's a paid tool, but it is an interesting one. I think the cost would be more than worth it. Cannot find the name of it. Can't think of the name. I'm trying to search my email. I signed up to the email and I get them every day pretty much. Hey, do you want to use this software? It's kind of like UI, UX. I'll know the site if I see the name. Oh. No. I have a purpose in this. I have a purpose in this diversion. I don't think he'll have a link. I won't find it. Anyway, if I find it, I'll post it. But basically, it's a site, and what they do is they collect UI UX analysis of all sorts of different site layouts and stuff, right? Because that's another challenge as well. When people come to use your application, just because you use it one way doesn't mean they will. And I am going to have to consider, as I do want to treat this as a product, reaching out and finding people at some point, investing some money, which will be the scary part, right? Right now I'm investing time and energy, and money, obviously, because this equipment, it doesn't come for free, but I'm investing more time than anything else. At some point, having an expert come in and do UI UX, looking at what I like, what I don't like, how do I present this? What do I feel is different, right? I don't think probably should look at some of what I'm trying to do. Let me just move it off screen so I can verify I've logged into my account. Oh. I have to put different auth on things. I want to make sure that I'm logging in and seeing, I'm not seeing past projects on Trello, etc. Yeah, which I would have done. Yeah. Pet Home was on here. Nice. Right. So here we go. It's actually a more workable example than I thought it would be. So Pet Home was a project that we started working on Stream back when I first started Stream, right? And we had all sorts of progress on it. We had all sorts of contributors, and we kind of laid this out, right? I don't believe this is the most productive way for a developer to see what they need to work on. I believe it's a good way for a product manager or a manager to know where things lie, but I don't believe it's the best view for a developer, right? What do you care about when you're working? You care about, do I have anything to do, right? So essentially you care about this line here, right? You care about what is the next piece of work I need to do, and then what jobs are on my plate. So you don't care about the overall view. You don't care about whether it's in QA or not. You just care, do you have to do anything with it? Because if the notifications are working smoothly, then if it comes back to you from reviewing QA, you will get a notification and it will put it back into your bin as, hey, you need to do something, right? So that's kind of where I want to focus the energy in terms of, this is a great view for a manager. At a glance, you can see where the sprint lies or where the current workload is, right? You can see it. At some point, this disappears, right? Complete work gets archived. Doesn't matter anymore. You don't care. In progress is the only thing that matters for you. So I think there's a dashboard view that is more, hey, this is your workload, right? Jira does have some dashboard concepts. You can build your own dashboards, etc. But it's not really, it's kind of like more analytics based. So I kind of want to look at that, right? UI, UX wise, what does it mean to do this sort of stuff? So at that point, I will have to invest more time and energy and money in finding people that can do what I want, right? I can't rely upon myself at that point because I am terrible at this stuff. So that site that I'm talking about, like, it's like, I've got the word member. It's like, watch this, it won't even be anything, but it's going to bug me until I figure it out. No, that's 4 a day. No. I want to find it. Has anybody else got recently? I've got significant emails from, hey, we've got your order. Just click on this invoice. Yeah, UI UX stuff. I'll find the link. I'm going to try and not stress that one right this second. But yeah, that will be the goal. To figure out that UI UX and then push this further forward as a platform. Once I've got those pieces in place. So to your point, Deflux earlier on, right? Maybe a year is too long, but I think within the next year, I'm making decent progress at these pieces, but I'll keep going back and reviewing and making sure. And at some point, I'm going to have to stick a UI in it because the more I realize I'm adding these components, yes, no UI is helpful, but no UI is absolutely a pain. Because to test this now, I have to log in. So I have to create a user. I have to go through those pieces. Teams, that's another concept I need to figure out soon. Right? Because right now I'm focused on the actual planning items. But what does a planning item mean? Without the context of where it's assigned, not just who it's assigned to, but where it's assigned. A tenant is one component of that information. So we'll have to go back over and do those things. So tenant in the Office 365 sense makes kind of sense, yeah. But yeah, teams, right? Developing that concept, figuring out those relationships. Those are things I need to figure out first, right? Because the way I've got it structured so far, right? Tickets, planning items, stories. I create a new tenant. I publish information about that tenant so these other systems can pick it up. Those systems consume it. I now log in. I represent a person on a tenant. Depending on the integrations we get down the line, I think that is a necessity. I think if you are developing software around work tracking that is built for development, then yeah, I think I have to consider Git integrations. It's not a necessity, apparently. No, I kind of think it is. ServiceNow has no integration. Yeah. I think 2 of the people I work with are from ServiceNow. But I feel it is necessary, right? Because one of the things that would be good would be if I do a pull request, or if I do a commit, right? Again, in the world of real development, what you should be doing is pushing your commits to the origin regularly, so they're not on your development machine. But you should get if the story's in to do, and you push a commit, it should automatically move it to in progress for you. You're working on it. So you shouldn't have to even mention that part. It shouldn't be something you have to worry about, right? Because the number of times I've heard, could you please make sure that's in the right column? Again, management stuff that management cares about, the developer, it's in your way. It's an extra step. You need to log into the software, it's a drag and drop. It's not like the end of the world. But still you have to log into the software and drag that across, and oftentimes you're just focused on the work. And yeah, and again, going into these cards, right, and bringing up the information, etc. Isn't there something better there, right? If I'm working on a story, can I not just see a view of that story? I don't know, I don't know how ServiceNow is, but in Jira, that UI is so cluttered with extra data that you don't care about, right? So I want to get rid of all that information. I want to present a developer view of the workboard and focus it that way. So things like, Git integrations, I think they are necessary, right? To say, hey, if a story comes with this pattern, this board is going to be affected, or this group is going to be affected. This story becomes in progress, right? Automatically, I think would be of a great benefit. The big challenge here is I can't test all these other platforms. I don't know what they do. I'm not trying to clone. I may end up repeating some features I then have to backtrack on when I see them. We'll see. So anyway, that is me for now, I think. I don't think I'm going to get any more significant development done. Where I was going with this is, when I first started this, is I've got a lot of pieces, right? I've got a lot of pieces to do. I've got a lot of pieces in my backlog so far to move forward with this piece. But this planning item comes with it a lot of implicit need. So unless I create a story right, actually I should create the story. As a product manager, I want to see a list of planning items. I should see a list of planning items with a title, description, who, the name of the person that created them, and the user currently assigned to them. Right. This is an API again, so that's not a big thing. Planning items. Now, that comes with implicit behavior, right? So I can say this one's done and move to doing this one. Because this now needs the user information, right? So in this instance, what I would plan to do is talk about that in the meeting that is going to happen before this story makes it into a board in the ideal world, right? I'd say we need to consume the tenant and tenant user created user events and store locally, right? Right now we're not doing that, right? So we have no need for these things. So the infrastructure components that are going to get published, I'm still thinking that user might be actually a published thing, because I don't like the idea of replicating the email around the system, but I do think there is a need for having the user information available. I don't think that necessarily. I think the tenant user is an association with that user. So, yeah. I think a user has a profile. We can kind of explore that a little bit more. But yeah, that would mean that I need to add this project or a version of this project into here, add the relevant components to save that information, and then I'll be able to do the query. So it comes with it. This story at first glance might look like it is a small story. And pointing wise, while I'm developing this, I can never do pointing. I can never do pointing because I'm a solo developer. My points mean nothing because I'm treading the fine line of waterfall because I'm not a product manager. I'm going to have to try and get better into that space. And once I get to the point where the actual application can actually do some of this, maybe I need to practice that a little bit more. they'll make me appreciate the role more. Yeah, it is something that is going to be a challenge as this project it grows, for certain. And the biggest difficulty would be the amount of streaming dedicated to it, right? Because I realize, there are people that don't like seeing large projects. It's not as interesting as the projects you can tinker with. But this is software development. This is reality. So anyway, for now, that is going to be it for this week, I believe. I don't think I'll get any. Depends. Things might be to the point where I stream tomorrow. Let's go rate full stack. Full stack is doing DevOps stuff, office hours stuff. I will return on Monday. We will do. I doubt there'll be a stream over the weekend this weekend, but it'll be ad hoc anyway. We'll return to Water Drink Water on Monday. I'll do Monday and Tuesday, basically water drink water, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday we'll do this sort of stuff. If you are interested and you are watching, feel free to join the Discord. The stream is not about being an experienced software developer. This is an experienced software developer sharing their current view of things, and the code that I'm writing might not be the code that everyone else would write. So, don't be afraid to ask questions, to reach out, to let me know what you think. The Discord is there if you want to jump in, have a look. Code for the stuff on Monday, Water Drink Water, is the platform we've been working on. That is a fully open source project, developing on stream, tinkering with technologies, tinkering with learning, tinkering with growth, doing things the wrong way deliberately so that we can learn some more about the right way, auth being a particularly difficult part of that. So, yeah, feel free. But that will be me for now. I will be back again on Monday. We'll raid over to Full Stack Live. And, yeah, thank you for joining me. Have a great weekend. Deflux, I will see you around. Thank you. And, yeah, see you all later. Take care.